within, and I just want to say and start out with a big thank you to everybody who's been super supportive of the page as I've been making these videos. We've been really trucking along on the YouTube game. I know we're still very, very small, but this is huge as far as content creation goes. It's been super enjoyable to make content for you guys in the war within. A lot of my stuff, of course, you know, if you're not familiar with my content, is discussion based. I like to make content that's kind of like, it's not necessarily like this person's right, this person's wrong, but kind of opinion based and kind of discussion based to kind of get a little bit more of opinions out there, as opposed to, hey, this issue's black and white and you're right, I'm right, you're wrong. So it's like, so I hope you enjoy this content. I hope you've been enjoying it. But today we're gonna be talking about some of the Mythic key stuff. I mean, we've talked about how characters can be kind of toxic in game, and that's just kind of sometimes the nature of Mythic Plus. But a couple of topics that came up. One was the 15-second time loss on death feels excessively punishing, as well as the pre-Squish adventure. So starting with the 15-second time loss, a wipe on anything 10 plus almost always feels like the key is over. Many of these timers are tight, and many mechanics are a one-person fail point that can kill everyone. Losing 75 seconds for a mistake feels incredibly brutal and discouraging, to the point where most people don't even want to try anything anymore after a wipe. And I feel like this to me, like, my biggest gripe with it is, even when I pull as a tank, sometimes you just pull a group and someone mispresses, someone doesn't press defensive, someone doesn't heal. You're just taking too much incoming damage, and it just happens. It's accidental, but sometimes it happens. And sometimes you have a big walk time. So 75 seconds and a corpse run. So yeah, so it can be so brutal to lose that much time, especially if you wipe. Now, for the most part, it's typically like one person in the group. Like, they'll die in a trash mob, they'll die on the boss, they'll die and on the way to the second boss, and you don't necessarily want to like execute this guy. I mean, like, they're this person who's in your key, but I feel like sort of like how fighting games have like the red bar that you can regain over time, you know, like that's not like gone, it's not fully gone. I feel like you should be able to re-earn some of that if you immediately start clearing again, in a way, like sort of like a re-earning of it in a sort of way, so it's not so detrimental. I feel like that would help a lot. But I know a lot of people, I think once you get to the 10 plus range, a lot of people are less forgiving in that they don't feel like that it should be taken away. Like, you should know better by that point. And I totally get that perspective, but I don't like the whole idea of a corpse run. I think that every boss should have, of course, like a checkpoint, but I also feel like, sort of like how raids go, you should be able to speed buff, you know, to the next trash mob in between, you know, so it's not so time consuming. It's so much to me. You're basically being punched 4 times. The time wasted from dying and running back, the time wasted killing the thing again, the 15 seconds, the key basically being depleted after the wipe. Yeah, I will say, like, I think deaths shouldn't be punishable as much as they are. I don't think it should be 0. But maybe like a collective time for a full wipe. Like, if it's 2 deaths, up to like 30 seconds, and then if it's 3 or more, like 40 seconds, you know, like maybe just something less if it's a whole wipe, because you can survive off of a 2, but 3 and beyond, like, you're likely done. So I would think that would be best. But I mean, of course, let me know in the comments. I mean, like as far as like, what do you think this should be changed to, if anything? I mean, if you think it shouldn't be changed, I totally respect it, but I think that ultimately, I've experienced it a bunch of times in Mythic Plus runs, and it'll usually be, like I said, that first situation where it's like, it's one person who's dying a bunch of times. I don't want to be like, kick this guy. I mean, you're in our group, so like, let's try to complete this. But I don't think one person should be able to take out a group, and I feel like I've lost like minutes at a time from losing a DPS, because you lose them and you get the 15-second penalty, but also the penalty from taking how long it takes them to get back into it, you know, depending on how long like the reses take, or etc., like how long combat is, etc., for them to get back into battle. So yeah, that's a bit brutal to me. I don't understand the point of when it was announced. I really don't understand the point of it now. Full wipes are extremely punishing with 0% penalty. Why do they feel the need to make it completely unrecoverable? I would say, should you have 0 wipes in a 10+ key? I mean, I think, is it insane for me to think that 1 wipe per boss is acceptable? I don't know. If not, at least making it to where you're like reset up at the boss, like right before the boss, and it's like you're right next to it. I just think once per is acceptable for a pretty long time, to me. Maybe at least one wipe is like, the first wipe is free. That seems acceptable to me in a sort of way. So it's to discourage the huge pull sizes that was meta in Dragonflight. The huge pull sizes are still there, my guy. So and honestly, they're worse, it feels like at times. A lot of times you pulled huge and lost a player or 3, it was still a huge time save. Yeah, I can get that. The cost benefit, like it was always better for you to take some hits, but you killed more things for the 15-second penalty. But in my opinion, it's still kind of that way. I mean, people do pull smaller, I guess, but I'm as I get higher and higher in keys, like it's still increasing how much I'm pulling. So I don't think it's necessarily that. Honestly, what I think it should be is, like, if you're killing massive mobs, and you know, as you're getting higher, I think the white hit damage, like the amount of times I get white crits that are just deadly, is insane. It's not even like the whole group. It's just like one person hits me and I'm like, oh shit, like I gotta pop a defensive. So, and you know how I'm limited on healing as a tank. I mean, it's rough. They want us to stop doing big pulls. I don't think that's what's happening. Because I mean, I think big pulls is what make the whole thing enjoyable. I mean, yeah, it makes the whole thing enjoyable, but big pulls is what makes sure that at the end of the boss, say you don't have percentage, say you don't have, say you need time in case there is a wipe. Big pulls is what saves that. So I kind of disagree. I mean, I kind of think maybe the intent was to prevent big pulls, but they didn't give you anything else in return to be like, if you don't do big pulls, you're saving on time. Like, to me, another thing you could do is, if you're clearing first boss, second boss, third boss, fourth boss, if you're under a certain threshold of deaths, then give me bonus time. Give me bonus time then. If you're truly trying to make it about that, if you're truly not trying to make it just harder for people in general, and not give them anything in return, and saying, oh, you can't do big pulls now, but in reality, you still need to do big pulls. You just need to not die, because if you die, it's gonna be that much more punishing. It just feels like they're just trying to punish it, and people go, well, they just intended that. It's like playing a Dark Souls game and being like, well, this boss is hard, and then they nerf it, and they go, oh, see, the boss was... The boss, they had intended the boss to be like this. Like, no, they intended the boss to be like this. It's just people were complaining a lot about the boss being hard, so they nerfed it. So it feels like the opposite of that, I guess. It just feels like people were saying that, or were utilizing something too easy. It was like people were like, oh, they're having too easy of a time by over pulling, so let's make it harder. And then people are like, Reddit somehow flips the negatives of WoW into a positive in some way. It's weird. Next one is the Mythic Plus pre-Squish. I was thinking about this myself a bit, and honestly, I do think about this semi-frequently. So as an altaholic, I really miss the progressing on newer spec in the 7 to 18 key range pre-Squish. Keys were easy enough to learn a new spec and still get decent gear crest while progressing towards higher keys. Dragonflight was really good at taking specs for a test drive, and now I feel like you don't get to have that ramp up period to decide if you want to do spec or not. PS this season has been awful to push keys, and I normally push 3.1k on my main. The average depletion rate has seemed to have increased in the pug scene, and that doesn't feel great either. This seems to be a trickle-down effect on the alts that don't have I or IO score. Overall, I'm curious how people feel about the Mythic plus Squish after 2 seasons, how the current season feels to the previous Dragonflight seasons. I feel like Heroic is still just too easy. Yeah, I feel like the transition from Heroics to Mythics is ridiculously low. I feel like in Dragonflight, I was much more encouraged to build my keys, whereas now, especially as a tank, I literally skipped over Heroics and I went straight to Mythics. Which Mythics weren't a problem. It's just that the range of keys that I'll get invited to, or people want me to tank in, it'll be like people want me to put me in a +5, and it's like totally fine. But it's like 0-bit dependent on me, to be honest, as a tank. Because what I do from like a 0 to a 5 literally doesn't change. So all that changes is if I have a better group, then I can do more, or I get rushed more by DPS. So yes, they have no gradient for learning mechanics. Heroics have the same don't stand here mechanics, which is great, but there seems to be multiple things increasing at once in terms of numbers and complexity. Yeah, I would say that definitely, of course, the mechanics do increase, but I mean, it happens even within the scope of Mythic Plus. I feel like a lot of times at the Mythic Zeros levels, like the first like 3 key levels, you can avoid a good portion of mechanics just by having good DPS. And once you start getting into the higher keys, then you just can't avoid it all of a sudden, and a lot of people aren't ready to handle that. And I think where it comes to issue is that a lot of the lower keys, it feels like it's all given to the tanks, so the DPS don't have to worry. But when the DPS have to commit to mechanics or participate in mechanics in some sort of way, that's when it becomes a problem. Like the moment you're like, hey, you just need to stand in this location so it doesn't hit everybody, or you need to stand in this location so it does hit something. Groups fall apart, absolutely fall apart at the seams, it seems. But yeah, Heroics are a fucking joke, absolutely a joke. Yes, you're right. As a tank healer, it's really annoying because you can't really learn a new class comfortably. Heroics are a joke, and at Mythic Zero is very hard. I disagree. If you got 3 DPSers that play like it's a Heroic, I would say most of the time healing a Mythic Zero is harder than a mid-range key. No, you start to notice healers struggling. I would say at like the +3 level. That's where, and the main reason is because DPS are making more mistakes, and so they're having to heal the DPS as opposed to the tank, and then people start dying. Really, it's like people blame the healers. In reality, it's DPS being fucking room temperature IQ. But if you have a good healer, you can have a below freezing IQ and your healer is good. It's just that like there's not a lot of room for healer growth. Same thing with tanks. It's the same experience with tanks. I'll say the exact same thing. I struggle as a tank carrying groups that don't have DPS that know what the mechanics are, and often I can't pick up the slack because if I'm in a higher key, I'm still kind of like making sure I do everything right. So I can't help you as well. So it's like there's not really that room. And I think that because I as a tank have less like self-healing and stuff like that, the best thing I can do is fucking intercept and do my self-heal so the healer doesn't have to heal me during that moment. But if after that's done, you haven't fucking figured it out, I got like 3 minutes till my next one. I got my 1 minute cooldown to my next one. So good luck. Hopefully there was enough DPS between those cooldowns for you to figure it out, I guess. So best of luck there. How is Mythic Zero hard? Yeah, no, honestly, I don't think Mythic Zero is very hard. I think it starts to get harder in like the 3 to 5 range. But you start to notice people sucking pretty early. 50-second death penalty. Affix is completely awful design. It causes so much more extra pug depletion. People legit leave after 1 wipe. Yeah, I've seen that too much. Honestly, I would blame a lot of it on the time penalties. People will leave immediately if they feel like you're not going to make time. So ultimately, it's more gatekeeping, truly. And I honestly don't, I can't blame people entirely for doing it. I will say something needs to be done about not necessarily just punishing people who leave, but making it easier for people who are in Mythics to either merge groups with other, you know, like say if like 2 groups falling apart at the same time, to like recover in some sort of way. Maybe give the person who's joining in mid-key some benefit of the doubt. You know, they can see how much is left of the key, see if the boss they want is there. I don't know, give them some sort of thing. Because like once you have one person leave, key is typically done. I haven't been in a situation where someone leaves during a key and we're like, oh no, we're fine. Like, cause typically it's a DPS. So, and that gets harder and harder to go without as you advance in keys. So that to me is a bit brutal. So I think that when it comes to Mythic Plus, I think the punishment of a 15-second penalty and everything that comes with it ultimately leads to a lot of this. Do I miss the pre-squish? Sometimes I think about it, because I mean, I do miss how it felt more like a much more even progression. Nowadays, it feels like some days I can do 5+ keys, no problem. Like that's not a big deal. And then other times it feels like I can't even do a 3, because like depending on the group that I get, it's like ugh. So I feel like really what that squish has done, it's made a lot of grouping very discongruent, to where low geared people can do decent if they know what they're doing, and other times it feels like you can't get over like the hump of the additional affixes. So that's what I feel. I feel like it ultimately creates a lot of resentment for pug groups, and a lot of resentment towards typically one class. For DPS, it's healers, and for tanks, it's DPS, and for healers, it's probably tanks. Like it probably goes in that weird like rock paper scissors order. So I think ultimately there needs to be some form of slight, if not partial recovery, if not some easy way to regroup to make it like where it's not so bad for the rest of the group, because it's like, because the rest of the group suffers when one person leaves. So I feel like the rest of the group should have something to help them out, even if it's just like a pause the timer. As long as we don't engage combat, pause so we can regroup or something. I don't know, maybe that's idiotic of me, but that's my solution. What do you think is the solution? What do you think is the way to do this? Let me know in the comments. And once again, thank you for watching these videos and subscribing to my page. If you are liking the videos, give it a like, subscribe. Check us out on Twitch and Twitter at Shawnsetgo. We also have a Discord community. We are, as I reach 500 subscribers, I'm going to start uploading an anime podcast for those of you who like anime and WoW. So we'll be uploading those for the exclusive members. So if you would like to be a part of that and get some of that exclusive content, be prepared for when we hit 500 subscribers, which is our next goal. All right, guys, I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.